Hi, I'm Irving, and I have no life, just like you.
The Ballad of Irving. Irving. Big fat Irving. Big sport Irving. The 142nd fastest gun in the West.
Our foray into point and click with the Vatican Mysteries game was a lot of fun. As I mentioned, there were 2 games on the disc. This is the other one. We're off to the ever-popular Bermuda Triangle. In a submarine, I guess. Since the sound is meaningless in these games, I like to turn it off. But notice the lower left corner there. It says, "Welcome Irving." It picked up my name and my stats from the other game. Very nice. Let's get to this. Rachel Broadview is a historian and archaeologist by trade. She's been looking through some old texts about shipwrecks and came across the name Bethany Broadview, who was on a ship called the Abigail Ann when it went down. Bethany was her great-grandmother's name, and other hints suggest that this is the person the text is talking about. She decides she needs to go check this out. If nothing else, it would be a chance to finally make use of a scuba license she had obtained in preparation for a Hawaiian honeymoon, which had marked both the auspicious beginning and ignominious end of her doomed first marriage. Never mind the shipwreck, tell me more about that. I love a good soap opera. She flies to Pequod Key. Her hotel room is a mess, so step 1 is to clean it up. I like this interface a lot better than the one in Vatican Mysteries. I can see pretty much all of the object list, it's easier to read and better placed. Alright! She finds this brochure and decides that this guy is probably going to be about as reputable as any, so may as well check him out. We have another nice new wrinkle. See that bowling pin in the dresser drawer? It's not on the list. There are a lot of objects like that. We have a new hint system as well, but if you make too many wrong guesses, it empties and you have to wait for it to refill before you can use it. When you take it all together, a bowling pin, a teddy bear, an air pump, it does make you wonder what the previous guest was doing in this room and if they left anything dangerous behind. The hint system is a little weird. When you click it, it picks the item it's going to show you, then you have to start moving your pointer around until it turns red. The redder it gets, the closer you are to the item, but it also has a very quick timer on it. Of course, that means if you sit there in one spot for 2/3 of the time with your finger in your nose, you're probably not going to find the item. Having finished cleaning up the room, except for the bowling pin and the teddy bear and a few other things that make you wonder what she has in mind, Rachel heads off to meet Captain Salvatore. So before she goes in to meet him, she's going to clean up his yard. Rachel seems like a very nice person. Sal assumes she's a bill collector and tells her to go away, but when she explains that she's there to hire him, he becomes the perfect host. He explains that unlike the other charters, he'll take you to the places off the beaten path where most tourists never go. Rachel explains her mission. Sal isn't too thrilled to find that she's just tracking some ancestors because you can't get rich from that, and he's much more into lucrative jobs that produce actual lucre, but he'll take it. If she's not scuba certified, he offers a refresher course. Rachel says, "Of course you do." We clean up his shop for him, then head out to his boat. Along the way, we learn that, as the story goes, the Abigail Ann was stuffed to the gills with gold. That's the incentive Sal needs. We find a wreck and start exploring. You have to find all the items on each wreck, of course, but this plaque is the crucial one on each site. It tells what the wreck is and when it went down, among other things. This one was called the Methane Queen, which makes it sound like she won a farting contest. You know all those extra items I mentioned back in the room? They're here too. I can see a rotary telephone right there. There's a nail clipper up on that railing. I see a lug wrench there on the deck. A Viking hat that makes me want to put it on and start singing spam, 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 spam. And I'm looking for an arrowhead. On the surface, Rachel mentions that when the remaining methane leaked out of one of those tanks, it made a whirlpool. She starts to wonder. Rachel has read about pockets of methane gas escaping from the Earth and causing similar phenomena. She wants to head to a nearby research station to see if that might explain the triangle. She knows some people there, so off they go to try and get more information about this methane whirlpool phenomenon. Rachel talks to a professor who's not too receptive. We discover that Sal and the good professor know each other. They were once engaged, which seems like kind of an uncomfortable memory for Sal. While these two engage in quasi-romantic awkwardness, Rachel says, "I'll just do what I came here to do. You two have fun. Just remember to lock the door!" You clean up after these ridiculously sloppy scientists and find what you were looking for. Ooh, touchdown Sal. Tinkerbell is his ROV, by the way. Rachel left the Marine Research Institute on Big Pine Key with her thoughts whirling as if she had experienced a mental outgassing of her own. She found herself investigating a subject that has been fodder for Philistines for decades, when all she really wanted was a bit of diversion during her summer vacation. On top of that, why was she jealous of Samantha? What did Salvatore have to make her jealous with anyway, apart from his self-touted inquisitive nature? And what exactly was their goal here? Finding the Abigail Ann seemed a more remote possibility now than it did when they first left Pequod Key. Salvatore, on the other hand, found himself in the proverbial catbird seat. Nothing brings out the pump in a vain soul like being stroked by an ex in front of a possible current. He smiled broadly to himself as the Owen chase cut through the speed bump waves with nary a jostle, the wind whistling shrilly through his artificially whitened teeth. They head out to the first plane wreck that Sal knows of. He says only 2 have been found, and this is the deepest, so we'll start here. This shows that the developers did their homework regarding scuba diving, because that's the way it's done. Deepest dive first, then shallower next time. The idea is to avoid decompression sickness, also known as the bends. It's nice to see attention to detail like this. One of the items on this wreck was a crusted mass, whatever that is. I had to use the hint because there was no way to know what this thing looked like. And the point of that was... a new game. Alright, let's check it out. You clean the object by connecting the blocks to get rid of the brown background. You can connect symbols, colors, or both. Connecting both clears out everything between the two, so that's the one you want to look for first. But they all help, and it's not timed that I could tell. The rest of the directions are there on the right if you're interested. When you complete the puzzle, you get to see what you uncovered. It's an old compass that still works, so it doesn't seem like anything interfered with it. Neither of them can imagine an entire squadron of 5 planes ignoring their compasses, so that's probably not what happened to these guys. On to the next one, but it's too deep for diving, so we have to use Tinkerbell. Operating Tinkerbell is a maze game. You're supposed to find your way from the start to the finish, don't cross your path, in the form of your umbilical in this game, and pick up all the treasure on the board in the process. My ADD brain can usually look at a board like this and map it out in my mind ahead of time, so that's why I'm moving so quickly here. I already figured out where the path is, so it's just a matter of pointing Tinkerbell the right way and saying go. You find a set of dog tags belonging to a Lieutenant Charles Taylor of the Fort Lauderdale Air Station. That's our next stop. Rachel also noticed that the fuel tanks were empty, as though they just flew until they ran out of gas and crashed. It's not pleasant to think about. Let's go deliver these dog tags. We meet an officer who, unlike Rachel, is not a very nice person. He assumes we're conspiracy hunters like the Kabillion before us, out to solve the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle. But when we show him the dog tags, his tone changes. He says he and Charlie, as he calls him, went through basic together and also did tours in Korea and Vietnam together. He asks if he can keep them and goes off to put them away. Sal says, okay, let's search his desk. Rachel says, what? Sal says, this guy is a phony. He didn't even look at the dog tags, and nobody who had been in Vietnam would nickname a guy Charlie. They would always call him Chuck, because Charlie was the slang term for the enemy. Everything about this guy's reaction stinks to high heaven. He makes a good point. Let's see who this guy really is. He has bunny ears on his world globe. Obviously a good military man. The doomed squadron was looking for the AM. Yeah, cool, sorry for your loss, gotta go, bye-bye. This guy is creepy! The next wreck is the deepest yet, but it pays off when you start finding something really weird. It looks a lot like we're building a torpedo. I found the plaque for this ship and something was a little weird. No trace has ever been found. Then what am I looking at? I don't understand that at all. If this wreck isn't the Raifuku Maru, then why is that plaque here? And if nobody's found it before, who put the plaque there?
Houston, we have a problem.
I keep reminding myself I got both games for $2, and for $2 they've been phenomenal, so I'll let it slide, this time. Let's clean up these things and see if we really have a torpedo. It's not just a torpedo, it's a U.S. Navy torpedo. The thick plottons. Let's move on to the next dive site and see what we can discover there. Nobody's found anything to explain what happened to it. We just found another torpedo tail. Could there be a connection? The hidden object search doesn't turn up anything, so it's time to go deeper via Tinkerbell. Oops. The torpedo fragment and the way the hull is ruptured prove that an American torpedo sank this American ship. Our heroes have had enough for one day and head home. The atmosphere surrounding Rachel and Salvatore on the boat ride home had turned suddenly grim. Neither was prepared for the depth of intrigue they had uncovered, and it affected them both in markedly different ways. Rachel, for the first time, regretted involving herself in a situation which now seemed to be spiraling out of control. She wanted nothing more than to return to her bungalow, collapse on the threadbare mattress, and catch the first plane back to Boston in the morning. Enough was enough. Salvatore had his own ideas about their currently untenable position. Although he had spent most of the past decade as a professional loafer, his strictly regimented background, his knowledge of the area, and his familiarity with some of the key players gave him enough insight to predict what was coming next. This was something Rachel could not do, and she was better off for it. Rachel discovers that someone has tossed her room. Sal says he expected it. He won't be any more specific than that, so let's just clean the place up. Actually, it looks remarkably similar to the way we left it, right down to the bowling pin. The air pump and a few other items are back, so whoever trashed the room thought you needed those things. Clear them out, and Sal decides it's safer for Rachel to stay at his place. On the couch, of course. You did find a button that doesn't appear to belong to anybody, but we'll deal with that later, I guess. Rachel apparently can't help cleaning up Sal's yard, and inside she wants to make sure nothing is missing. And how would he be able to tell? You find a shell bracelet that Sal says is a symbol of manhood to a certain tribe on a certain island, and how the heck did it get here? And something else too crusted to identify. Time to clean it up. I like the way we're mixing up the mini games, not going in any particular sequence so it doesn't get predictable. This is a well-structured game. Right, go to sleep with that thing on your mind. Pleasant dreams! In the morning, Sal is ready to cast off by the time Rachel emerges from the cabin. He's not too sure about her going, but she's not taking no for an answer. And considering the day before she was ready to say screw it and head home, even she's wondering why. The tribe in question is associated with Friar Atwill. Rachel wonders if he has something to do with the shipwrecks. Sal suspects so, but clearly Atwell also doesn't know where the Abigail Ann is, so he's trying to warn them away so he can find it himself. Hence the skull and all that. We met the friar in an earlier part that somehow didn't get captured, but in that conversation you got everything that we missed by not capturing it. He's as shady as everybody else we've met in this game. You go searching for him, but the village where he lives is deserted. Let's take a look at his mission. Friar, I thought you said you were keeping your end under control. If that's the case, why do I have two no-good treasure hunters interfering with our plans? Need I remind you of your spiritual obligations? Devlin. Guess who's looking for the Abigail Ann and its fabled holds full of riches? Everybody! And they don't want Sal's help. His boat's been vandalized. There's nothing useful on the deck, so Sal decides he wants to look below because some aspects of this derelict hulk look awfully well kept. You take everything from a camshaft, what you actually needed, to some poor guy's toothbrush and leave. I probably don't want to know why his toothbrush was in the engine room. We also find that. Suspiciouser and suspiciouser. I got down to one item that I just couldn't find. Typical guy, always looking for a screw. This chart shows the location of possible AA meetings, but they all look like they're at sea. Call me crazy, but AA? Abigail Ann? I wouldn't be caught dead near any other kind of AA meeting. The next 2 hours of Rachel's life felt like days as she repeatedly cranked the reluctant starter at Salvatore's request while he hammered away at various parts of the Owen chase. When Rachel's eyes weren't flicking back towards Punta Blanca, half expecting to see Friar Atwill leading a throng of crazed villagers over the nearest hillock towards their boat, they were fixed on the ocean, fearing a fleet of rogue Navy vessels might be coming to take them away. She couldn't decide which situation would be worse. Finally, the engine of the Owen chase grumbled to life in begrudging assent. For a few moments, Salvatore toyed with the idea of going to Costa Rica, forgetting the whole damned affair. But instead, he aimed his newly camshafted baby in the direction of the first AA meeting on the chart they had found aboard Finnegan's Wake. 2 hours later, seasick and sunburned, Rachel experienced what she imagined sailors and pirates felt upon leaving a hostile piece of land: relief in the anonymity of the open sea. At least the dangers of the ocean were indifferent. At least it bore her no personal animus. She could deal with that. It's perfectly indifferent about killing her. That's different. The next dive was on a plane. Rachel thought she saw a boat on the horizon, but then it vanished. Sal brushes it off and down they go. That's what's left of a stratotanker. As the story goes, 2 of them collided in midair and both went down. But some researchers say the 2 wrecks are a good 200 miles apart, so how could that be? The mystery is still open, so I guess it's our turn. You find another crusted blob as well as a piece of wing with bullet holes in it. So much for the midair collision theory. You clean it off and discover that yes, it is in fact a watermelon. Just toss it out there in the cattle pasture. Soon it'll be abominable. That's for those who just got it. I figured out early in the game that the key to the story is finding those plaques, so I usually looked for those more or less first. So it's not the Abigail Ann. It's her sister Mary Celeste. Last name Frumpelmeyer. They're my ancestors. There's only 1 wreck left. Rachel says if that's not it, maybe Costa Rica's a good idea, but Samantha isn't invited. The water is calm and conditions are perfect for this dive. Sal says maybe karma is finally coming around. Rachel says if karma ever catches up with you, I don't want to be anywhere near you. But she's ready to run off to Costa Rica with him and just said in so many words that she wants him all to herself. But first they need to make sure there's at least 37 oodles of gold on that wreck. The first thing I notice is gold bars are on the list. Spoilers. French imperial gold is heavier than ordinary gold, you see. She could lift ordinary gold. And there she is. The mystery is solved. And the only personal artifact that survived all these centuries is a locket that just happened to belong to her great-grandmother.
Isn't that convenient?
With all this evidence, you surface to figure out how to raise the gold. You surface to find Friar Atwill taking control of your boat. He figures you've found the Abigail Ann and wants to know what you discovered. Sal invites him to go see for himself. The friar laughs that off, then reminds them that the Finnegan's Wake can blow them out of the water if they misbehave. Devlin is here too. Rachel asks him how long they've been wantonly killing people to keep them from finding this wreck. He says, "I'm not a Bond villain. I'm not going to stand here and tell you the whole story. You have work to do. You're going to take Tinkerbell down and confirm the wreck for us." Rachel asks if they can get out of their wetsuits first. While they do that, they finagle a plan to put the bomb they found onto Tinkerbell and then deliver it to the Finnegans' Wake. One more time, we take Tinkerbell down and work the maze. You could tell from the graphic that we were planting a bomb and not searching for treasure this time, right? The bomb does its thing and we wrap up the story. With that, the good friar, Admiral Devlin, and all the rest become just one more victim of the Bermuda Triangle. Seems kind of appropriate. Sal and Rachel get the gold in accordance with maritime law and find their beach in Costa Rica. As the screen says, the union was far from perfect, but it certainly wasn't boring. Meanwhile, the real story of the Bermuda Triangle begins to unfold. The Abigail Ann set out for the New World loaded with gold to help spread Christianity, but it went down in a really bad storm. One survivor was a friar named Atwill. He knew about the gold, and when he reached the new continent, he gave up his vows and went rogue, swearing that gold was going to be his. Generation after generation kept looking, and the latest one happened to hook up with a corrupt admiral. The rest we know. That was a much more interesting story than the last one. And did I mention I really like this interface? The artwork is a tad less realistic, but that gives the artists a chance to hide more objects more effectively, and oh, did they. This was challenging. I'm probably going to play it again and again because it's impossible to remember where everything was, so it stays challenging. I've bought a bunch more of the games in this series and we'll look at all of them as we go. It also has a companion series called Hidden Secrets. So those ones, they're just hidden, but somebody knows where they are. Got it. In the meantime, Adamania is here. What's that? There's one way to find out. Head to my channel and check it out. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. I'm Irving and I have no life, just like you.
Well, finally, Irving got 3 slugs in the belly. It was right outside the Frontier Deli. He was sitting there twirling his gun around, and Butterfingers Irving gunned himself down. Irving. Big fat Irving. Big dum-dum Irving. Big dum-dum dead Irving. The 142nd fastest gun in the West. Really?
Rachel also noticed that the fuel tanks were empty, as though they not anymore, they don't.